One night, in the corridor of an underground train station, there was a man busking with his trumpet to earn a little money. The man was handsome, bearded, and had the appearance of a true man, like Captain America. His name was Nick. At that time, Nick was feeling heartbroken. He had just received news from his friend, Danny, who said that he saw Nick's ex-girlfriend at a party with another man. At first, Nick intended to go to that party, but after hearing the news, he became overwhelmed with doubt and sadness. While sitting and reflecting on his fate, a woman suddenly ran past him and accidentally dropped her cell phone. Nick tried to call out to her, but she didn't notice him. The woman was in a hurry, trying to catch the last departing train. Unfortunately, she was too late, and the woman, whose name was Broke, became very sad. Seeing Broke return to the station corridor, Nick approached her and returned her phone she had dropped. After receiving her phone, Broke walked up to a cleaning staff member and asked when the next train would arrive. The worker replied that there would be no more trains until morning. Hearing this, Broke looked even more hopeless. Outside the station, Nick saw Broke again, still standing there alone. He gathered the courage to ask why she was still there. Broke explained that her wallet had been stolen and the only thing she had left was a train ticket to go home. Feeling sorry for her, Nick decided to help. Nick stopped a taxi and asked the driver to take Broke home. However, the destination turned out to be quite far and required an expensive fare. Nick tried to pay with his credit card, but it had already reached its limit. He then tried to contact his friend, but his phone had run out of battery. Feeling that there was no hope if she stayed with Nick, Broke eventually chose to leave him. Broke walked aimlessly with no clear destination. As she was walking, she saw several drunk people approaching her, and it seemed they intended to bother her. Broke became frightened and tried to keep walking calmly. Suddenly, from behind, Nick appeared and put his arm around her, pretending to be her boyfriend. Like a superhero, Nick arrived at the perfect moment to protect and save Broke from the drunks. Broke thanked Nick for helping her. She also shared that she had no friends or anyone she could contact there. Her wallet was gone as well, including her ID card and credit cards. Nick then offered to help Broke look for her lost wallet. He said that pickpockets usually only take the cash, and they often throw the wallet away afterward. They went to a bar where Broke had last lost her wallet. Nick asked the bartender if he had seen a Prada wallet. The bartender tried to recall, then went to the back to look for it. While waiting, Nick shared that he was in the city to attend an audition. A well-known jazz band was looking for a trumpet player, and Nick wanted to try his luck. Brooke also talked about herself, saying that she worked as an art consultant. Not long after, the bartender returned and gave them an address. He said that the bag they were looking for was most likely at that location. Nick and Brooke continued their search to the address the bartender had given them. However, the place was known to be dangerous, as it was a hideout for thugs. Worried that something might happen, Nick asked Brooke to wait somewhere else and let him go in alone. Nick rang the doorbell of the building. Shortly after, a thug opened the door and told Nick to come inside. Meanwhile, Brooke, who was waiting outside, was seen making a phone call. It turned out she was calling her husband, who was on duty out of town. From the conversation, Brooke learned that her husband would be returning earlier than scheduled. Hearing this news, Brooke became even more anxious. Back to Nick, he finally managed to find Brooke's bag. Unfortunately, the thug demanded a large payment if Nick wanted to take the bag back. As Nick tried to negotiate, the CCTV monitor suddenly showed the police arriving at the location. The thug panicked, then punched Nick and ran away with all the stolen goods. It turned out that the police had come because Brooke had stopped and reported to officers who were patrolling the street. Brooke apologized to Nick because her actions had caused Nick to be beaten by the thug and had ruined his effort to retrieve the bag. Now, Brooke was no longer too concerned about her bag. Her priority was to get home as soon as possible before her husband returned. If she arrived late, she felt it could destroy her marriage. Nick then contacted a taxi company, but the cost of the trip to Brooke's house turned out to be very expensive. With his limited finances, Nick began looking for a way to meet his friend and borrow some money. Nick and Brooke planned to go to an engagement party where Nick's friend would be present. They arrived at a hotel, and as they were about to get into the elevator, Nick looked extremely nervous. Brooke asked what was wrong with him. Nick explained that there was a chance he would run into his ex-girlfriend at the event. Since it had been a long time since they last met, Nick felt awkward and tense. When they arrived at the party, Nick realized that his friend had given him the wrong address. Nick and Brooke decided to leave the event. However, just as they were about to go, someone suddenly approached Nick. That person mistook Nick for a band member who had been invited to perform at the party. Hearing that the payment was quite generous, Nick decided to try his luck and went up on stage.
My funny Valentine, your looks are laughable.
In the middle of the song, Nick saw the real band members arrive at the party. At that moment, Nick and Brooke realized that their disguise had been exposed. They immediately got off the stage and ran away from the party. Their plan to earn some money ended in failure. Now, Nick and Brooke were standing at a public phone booth. To clear his confused mind, Nick invited Brooke to play a simple game. They pretended to call their past selves and leave messages from the future.
Brooke, it's you from the future.
Don't talk to any strangers in Grand Central.
Ouch. Nick, hey, it's me, you, from the future.
After the game, Nick suddenly got the idea to go home by bus. However, once again, they were too late. The last bus to the city where Brooke lived was no longer running. Brooke looked even more desperate. Nick then asked whether Brooke's husband knew that she was in New York. Brooke explained that her husband did know she was in New York, but there was one important thing she needed to take care of at home before her husband returned. Nick suggested that someone else handle it, but Brooke replied that her phone was broken, so she couldn't contact anyone. Quickly, Nick approached a stranger nearby to borrow a phone. Brooke immediately called one of her close friends. She asked her friend to go to her house, enter the bedroom, take a letter that was on the bed, and keep it until Brooke came to see her. After ending the call, Brooke walked over to Nick and hugged him. She felt that Nick had helped her a lot in dealing with the problems she was facing. As they continued walking, Brooke looked much calmer. She felt that her problems had been resolved, and now she just needed to wait for the morning train. Brooke then asked whether Nick had heard back from his friend. Nick replied that his friend had given him the correct address of the party. Brooke asked whether Nick was going to attend the event. Nick answered hesitantly, remembering that his ex-girlfriend would be there with another man. Feeling indebted to Nick, Brooke offered to pretend to be Nick's girlfriend in front of his ex. At first, Nick hesitated, but Brooke's persuasion eventually made it impossible for him to refuse.
Carrie Bradshaw's
Brooke Dalton's pretend boyfriend.
Upon arriving at a bar, Nick finally managed to meet his close friend, Danny. When he saw Brooke, Danny seemed eager to flirt with her. However, Nick immediately explained that Brooke was his girlfriend. Hearing this, Danny felt embarrassed toward Nick. As an apology, Danny gave Nick the key to his hotel room. Seeing Danny hand over the hotel room key, Brooke felt awkward since they were actually only pretending to be a couple. While Danny was busy chatting with Brooke, Nick, on the other hand, noticed his ex-girlfriend. At the same time, Nick's ex, named Hannah, also saw him. When she spotted Nick, Hannah immediately approached and hugged him. From the look on Nick's face, it was clear that he still hadn't fully moved on from Hannah. Nick then introduced Brooke to Hannah. Nick and Hannah had a brief conversation while gazing at each other. From their eyes, it was evident that both of them still held feelings of longing. Not long after, Hannah's boyfriend came over to them. When the man arrived, Nick felt jealous and uncomfortable. He decided to excuse himself early, saying that he had some matters to attend to. Hannah didn't stop him and let him go. Before parting, Hannah mentioned that she was staying at a hotel, and if Nick and Brooke had time, they were welcome to stop by and talk. On a staircase, Nick and Brooke sat together. Brooke asked why Nick looked like he was running away. Nick explained that for 6 years he had never met Hannah. He had repeatedly imagined and prepared himself for the possibility of seeing her again. However, when he saw Hannah with her new boyfriend earlier, his confidence instantly collapsed. Brooke then asked how Nick and Hannah first met. Nick explained that he had once studied medicine, even though he never truly liked the major. Nick preferred the world of music. One day, while he was performing at a concert, that was where he first met Hannah. From that meeting, their relationship began. One day, Nick bought a ring to propose to Hannah. He went to Hannah's apartment with the intention of giving her the ring. However, before Nick could express his intentions, Hannah asked to end their relationship. That moment deeply hurt Nick and left him trapped in heartbreak up until now. Nick had thought that meeting Hannah again that night might be his chance to be together with her once more, but in reality, Hannah now had a boyfriend. After hearing Nick's sad story, Brooke tried to comfort him. She said that Nick actually still had a chance, especially since Hannah was not married to that man yet. Brooke also admitted that after seeing Hannah's boyfriend, she felt that Nick was far better than him. Brooke suggested that Nick try talking to Hannah again. She said that sometimes in life we need to make a choice and dare to take risks in order to get what we truly want. Hearing Brooke's words, Nick finally gathered the courage to go and meet Hannah again. Brooke accompanied Nick to meet Hannah again. She waited in a corner watching Nick as he talked with his former lover. In her heart, Brooke hoped and prayed that Nick would be able to reunite with the love of his past. Not long after, Nick suddenly walked out. Brooke followed him from behind and asked what had happened. Nick replied that Hannah was actually happy to see him again and to talk with him. However, Nick had just learned that Hannah was pregnant. Hearing this truth, Nick felt that his hope of getting back together with Hannah had completely vanished. Brooke felt bad and apologized to Nick. She then asked what Nick planned to do next. Nick answered that perhaps they should take a walk for a while to get some fresh air so he could feel better. Nick and Brooke walked around the city. When they passed a fortune teller's shop, Brooke invited Nick to go inside. They entered the shop and met an old man who worked as a fortune teller. They chatted briefly with him. In the middle of the conversation, Brooke suddenly remembered her letter. She asked for permission to borrow the fortune teller's phone because she wanted to call her best friend and ask about the letter. While talking to her friend, Brooke learned that her friend had failed to get into her house. The friend explained that when she tried to enter, Brooke's house alarm went off. Panicked and afraid the police would arrive, her friend ran away. Hearing about the failure, Brooke felt frustrated again. After leaving the fortune teller's shop, Nick and Brooke continued walking together. Nick felt that there was something different about Brooke's behavior after she borrowed the phone. They sat down for a moment and Brooke began to explain what had really happened. Brooke revealed that that day was actually her wedding anniversary. A few months earlier, she had discovered that her husband was cheating on her. Brooke found several emails from a woman to her husband that included a hotel room number. She felt extremely angry and wanted to confront her husband and vent her emotions. However, Brooke couldn't bring herself to destroy her marriage because she still loved her husband deeply. The day before Brooke left for New York, Brooke saw another email from that woman to her husband. Her emotions reached their breaking point. Brooke poured all her anger into a letter she wrote, including a request for a divorce. She also left the letter together with her wedding ring on the bed. However, while she was in New York, for some reason Brooke realized that she still loved her husband and couldn't leave him. That was why she had to return home as soon as possible before her husband read the letter so that her marriage could still be saved.
There's no coming back from it. I can't come back from that venom and that hatred and that ugliness.
Feeling sorry after hearing Brooke's story, Nick finally invited her to calm down at a coffee shop. There, Brooke continued her story. She admitted that she was still haunted by the fear that her husband's affair partner might be far more beautiful than she was. Nick tried to comfort Brooke. He said that he was sure that when Brooke's husband read the letter, he would immediately contact her and apologize for all the mistakes he had made. Nick also reassured Brooke that her marriage would be fine. All Brooke needed to do was keep moving forward and have the courage to face it. Hearing Nick's words, tears unknowingly streamed down Brooke's face. She asked for permission to go to the restroom. Nick waited while Brooke was inside, but for some reason she seemed to be taking too long. Nick decided to go after her. It turned out that Brooke was already outside and appeared to be calling a taxi. Seeing that Brooke was about to leave, Nick quickly approached her and tried to stop her. Nick asked where she was going. Brooke replied that she was going to her mother's house to stay there for a while, and after that she planned to go abroad. Nick said that he wouldn't let Brooke run away from her problems. Hearing this, Brooke became angry. She said that Nick was just a stranger she had only just met, and there was no reason for her to listen to his advice. Not only that, Brooke also vented her emotions by saying that Nick's own life was very miserable. He failed to finish medical school, couldn't move on from his ex-girlfriend for years, and was even hesitant to attend an audition just because his ex had rejected his marriage proposal. Hearing all of this, Nick simply sighed and apologized. Calmly, Nick once again invited Brooke to try to calm herself. There were still a few hours before the train Brooke would take arrived. Because of that, Nick offered for Brooke to rest for a while at a hotel. Having no other choice, Brooke finally followed Nick. The room was the same hotel key that Danny had previously given Nick when they met at the bar. Inside the room, Brooke apologized to Nick for all the harsh words she had said earlier. Nick forgave her and suggested that Brooke take a shower to help her calm down. After Brooke finished showering, the atmosphere became very quiet. Nick and Brooke looked at each other. For some reason, their gaze resembled that of two people falling in love. However, they both realized that Brooke was a married woman, and whatever they might want should not happen. While waiting for the time of Brooke's train departure, they simply sat together, drew something on the back of a hotel painting, and talked. Being together, they felt comfortable with each other. Even though they only spent a few hours together, it felt like they had a lot in common. In that moment, Nick and Brooke seemed to forget all the problems they were facing, and perhaps if Brooke did not have a husband, the two of them would have looked like a perfectly matched couple.
Head between speakers wave.
Without realizing it, time passed so quickly. When morning came, it was time for Nick to escort Brooke to the train station. They walked side by side, holding hands. Just before parting, Nick and Brooke looked at each other. From their expressions, sadness was clearly visible, as if neither of them wanted to let go. Nick then picked up a phone receiver and pretended to call his past self. He told his past self that one day, when he was at a train station, he would not need to meet his ex-girlfriend who would only break his heart. Instead, at that place, he would meet a woman who was in trouble. That woman would trouble him and even cause him to be punched by a thug. However, he had to stay by her side. Nick continued his message, saying that one day he would realize that he actually needed that woman more than she needed him, and at the end of their time together, he would have to thank her because she had opened his eyes and mind and made him realize that he could move on and love someone else than the ex-girlfriend he had loved so deeply for so long. Hearing all of Nick's words, Brooke could only remain silent as tears slowly fell from her eyes. The film then comes to an end. Brooke still returns home, while Nick, from a distance, watches Brooke leave with a sad heart because in the end, the woman he loved belonged to someone else. This film teaches us that when we love someone and find it difficult to move on, we should trust that one day we will find someone else we can love as well. However, it is important to remember that we may like anyone we want, but we should never destroy someone else's relationship. The film is titled Before We Go, 2014. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this channel. See you in the next film.